Hey, it's Tuesday.
Yes, it is. Woohoo! And we're back. We took a little break for a week.
Yes,
How was your break?
it was nice. It was nice. I needed to recover from my birthday. Just get my mind right, spend some time reflecting, you know. So it was nice. I loved it.
Good. I don't think I needed a break from my birthday. Our birthday. That's so funny. Um, it was a busy week, though. It was a busy week, and that COVID is still here.
Yeah, yeah. Although people here are acting like it's not real. I don't know what's going on with folks. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I need people to calm down. Sorry, I had to fix my mic. It was doing something strange.
No worries.
So, other than that, how's your week been?
It's good. It's early voting. I saw that you voted.
I did vote. I did vote. I try to make sure that I take the little one with me every single time so that she completely understands that I'm just not out here on social media talking about it. Like this is a real thing. I'm
Right.
talking about it, and we're gonna go to these polls and we're gonna vote. And it was nice. We
Good.
went early. The poll worker was an elderly gentleman, which with COVID completely concerns me, but
Hey.
he like explained it all to her because we used the electronic one. He let her do the scanning and put the ballot in so that it could be printed out. And then once we had to use a stylus because they didn't want you touching the screen.
Right.
And once we cast our vote, then he showed her how to put it into the actual like ballot box. So
Right.
really
Right.
nice for her.
That was a good experience.
Yeah.
People don't realize that, it is a privilege to be able to vote.
Yes. Yeah. And it's kind of stinky because Makai misses the primary by 4 days.
Wow.
Because he turns 18 on the 8th.
Right. And
So
that's
everybody, if you're watching the show, you all know that COVID has completely robbed he's weird. So he's the youngest plus middle child.
right.
So he's always coming up short, not getting birthdays, not getting.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so we got no prom, no senior prom, no senior graduation ceremony. They had a Zoom, but I was like, I'm not watching this.
Right. Right.
And this whole, so anyway, we just did a little GoFundMe. I'll post a link here in the comments if anybody's watching.
Looking forward to sending him a nice gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
The babies. They're not babies anymore.
I know. They're not babies anymore. They're humongous kiddos. And I can't.
You have one that's out of college and two in college, and one is what? Starting elementary.
Well, she started kindergarten, so let her tell it. She going to KU too.
Right.
She's moving into the dorm.
Oh gosh, amazing.
The only good part about COVID is that I can't take her for the move-in, so I don't have to deal with the drama.
Right.
Because last time it was like drama. So now we can't take her, so I don't have to deal with her shenanigans, which is great.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, we're learning to live with COVID.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Life still has to keep going. People, please wear your mask. We're not wearing our masks because we're in our homes right now.
Right.
But please, it's highly important. I just got a text from a dear friend, and she just lost a dear friend to COVID. A lot of us are thinking, oh, it doesn't affect us Black people, but guess what? It does.
It does. No, may Herman Cain rest in peace, but
okay.
That entire peanut gallery knows good and hell well they should have had on some masks at that rally.
Yeah. But, we are learning lessons from people who are being hard-headed. I'd rather not bump my head. I'd rather let you want to bump your head and I'll learn your lesson. So, but it's been a very crazy year. We are
Yeah.
8 months. Today is August 4th.
Yeah.
August 4th, and the year is going by pretty fast. I'm really looking forward to 2021.
Yes.
Yes, 2020 has been nothing but,
Garbage.
well, and also lessons. A
You're
lot,
right. Well, it hasn't been all bad. You're right. You're right.
a lot of lessons, you know. None of us, no one could have told me 5 years ago that this is where where the world would be, where I would be. Um,
Not at all.
Not at all. You know, so a lot of lessons, and people need to be careful, continue to wear your mask, and look forward to the future.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So everybody notices that we have a little bit different background today.
Yes, we do. I love it too.
So I am so excited to be a part of the James Beard Chef Policy Boot Camp. I don't know if I'm saying all of the names right, but it's something in regards to that.
Kingsbury Boot Camp,
Yeah,
and on food policy,
that's it.
where you can be an advocate for the rest of the United States for
Right.
food and farmers.
Right.
Um,
So I had one of my cohorts is Bleu Adams. She is a representative from the Navajo Nation. And remember when we talked about like planning out our shows, we were like, who do we know that's indigenous? And I'm like, I don't know anybody.
right.
But look, this is just how God works things out. He just kind of always puts me right where I need to be, doing what I need to be doing. And that's that. But she is an amazing lady. First of all, I'm gonna just like run through her bio really quick while she's getting situated in the green room.
But can I quickly say I love her name? Everyone knows.
I know you do. I knew you were gonna be excited about it because her name was Blue.
Oh, I got so excited, so I can't wait to meet her. So you want to just do a little quick introduction, but of course she's going to speak on herself.
Yep. So she is one of 12 recipients in the nation to receive a scholarship to attend the James Beard Foundation Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program in 2017.
Wow,
She seeks to be involved in the food scene. She runs IndigiHub, which I'm so excited to find out about. It's a functioning space where entrepreneurs and can go and work, learn, and collaborate. She, they're basically working on talking about like the issues of being indigenous and being on a reservation and working through all that. Her mission, though, is to strengthen not only her Navajo community, but also to connect Native American reservations across the country, which I was like, she better. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I'm going to bring Blue in so that we can let her tell us about all of her amazing things.
Okay.
She was there. Uh-oh.
Because she was trying to get straight. She was a little upside down.
No, okay. Well, we'll just see. We lost her video feed for just a second.
Yeah, she's going to come right back on.
And it's great so I've been doing like a lot of research about the Navajo Nation and what's going on Indian reservations. And it's, is she straight now? She's straight on my end.
No, well, go ahead and pull her up.
Yep, I got it. There you are.
And she's upside down on my end.
Guys.
She's right side up to me. Can you look on your phone and see if she's right side up? Because I see her right side up. How do you see yourself? Can you hear us, Blue?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got you.
Okay.
Are you right side up on your end?
I am.
Okay. She's right side
Which
up.
is why I was confused.
Okay.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
We changed our background because the picture on your website was so beautiful. I was like, that needs to be our background.
Oh.
So tell us more
about
you and what you're doing. And, we want to hear about COVID and how you're pivoting and how it's affecting our brothers and sisters on the reservations.
Sure. So I've been doing work on the reservation my entire life. Within this capacity, I actually sold one of my first restaurants that I started so I could go back and hopefully encourage people to open restaurants on the Navajo Nation. That was through my work with IndigiHub, which is it's an organization I'm trying to build to provide infrastructure for businesses. You have to understand that on Navajo, there isn't a lot of infrastructure. Around 40% of the residents don't even have running water.
I just read that
today, that filters into the business.
Yeah, I just read that.
It's hard to imagine, right? In America.
Yeah, the article said 30 to 40% don't have running water or electricity. The nation is 127,000 square miles, and there's 12 healthcare facilities to service that whole 127,000. You guys have had 9,000 cases of COVID. Although you're flattening the curve, that's 3 times more than most other places in the country. And you guys are still dealing with the same thing that other Black and brown people are dealing with: institutional racism, and on and on and on and on and on.
Right. Absolutely. So because we're aware that we knew so let me continue. I had opened Blackbird Brunch, which is a shared restaurant space. It's a cooperative. I worked with 5 other chefs in the space. The reason we did that was so chefs and food producers, cooks, etc., could have a space where they didn't have to invest a lot of capital for startup. And then they could test their concept and hopefully learn enough to open their own restaurants. We had only been operating for 1 season. We were set to reopen because it's really difficult with the roads being dirt to operate in the winter. We were set to open in March, and this hit. So we knew that, we have specific situations. A lot of our homes, they house multiple generations of family members. And some of the earliest advice was to, if you did get sick, you were supposed to isolate, but that's impossible. And then trying to wash your hands when you don't have running water, you're already rationing water. So we knew we were going to get hit hard. I took the opportunity to pivot my business. We didn't reopen Blackbird. We actually, me and some other co-founders started Protect Native Elders, which was a rapid response COVID organization. We have, to this date, distributed about $500,000 worth of PPE supplies to over 60 Indigenous communities from Mexico to Canada. So Blackbird operates as a warehouse right now. My role is shipping and receiving. And behind me, I was set to open House of Fry Bread in Provo, Utah, around the same time in March. So I don't know how you open a restaurant during a pandemic, but I'm about to find out.
Very carefully, I think.
Right. And also congratulations to
I lost the audio. Sorry.
I have a little question. I mean, I'm sure you can give the link to Shanita so that people can maybe donate. Is there like a link or anything? Is there a website? Is there for people who want to help with since you're saying that your other place is a hub and storage to help from Mexico to Canada? Is there some kind of link or anything like that? Uh-oh.
I think she lost her sound for a second.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I lost audio.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, sometimes when people call you, that happens.
oh, she's out. Oh, she'll be right back, I'm for sure. Um, there she is. Um, Janita, you might lose me. It's about to really storm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the internet's going to get spotty.
Yeah. So, man, she's an amazing person.
Absolutely. They are doing a lot. 40% of the people don't have running water and electricity. Okay, here she is.
Hi,
Okay,
Blue.
there you are.
This is like my fourth Zoom today, and for some reason it's just not cooperating. So my apologies.
No, sometimes if you get a call or a text, it kicks the call out. It does that to me too. Like one time my son literally called me like 8 times and I was like, dude, if you call me one more time during this time,
I'm
get
on
it
my iPad, so yeah.
We're used to it, you know. It's
It
that kind of, this is our life right now. It's a Zoom.
We're all learning.
Exactly.
So we were asking, like, how can people support the Protect Our Elders program? And you can tell us even a little bit more about that. And how do you, how are you guys getting the supplies? And do you guys need people? Is there like an Amazon wish list, whatever, so we can make sure that we get the people who are watching and viewing later the information to be supportive?
Absolutely. And I'll put links in the chat as well. So you can visit protectnativeelders.org.
Okay.
And myself, so part of my function, again, we're talking about capacity on reservations. A lot of the buildings and structures don't have a physical address. So we can't ship a lot of items. So I will end up driving anywhere from 6 to 14 hours doing deliveries either from Provo or across the Navajo Nation. Like you said, it's the size of West Virginia. So we do a lot of driving, me and my other couriers who are also volunteers. That's an important thing to state, is we're all volunteer organizations. So any contribution, monetary, is best, because we do source, and we try to source from Indigenous companies. And one of the stories I wanted to tell here was we had a donation of 25,000 fabric masks from Uncle Nearest, which is a Black-owned whiskey company. Yes.
I have some here, but go ahead.
Awesome. So we try to source from Black, Indigenous, and people of color organizations when we can, and that the monetary donations allow us to put that money into those companies.
That's amazing. Awesome. That's amazing. And we love Uncle Nearest, so shout out to them.
Awesome. Yes.
This drinking, no bite having that you can get your hands on, if you can get your hands on it. I'm in the Midwest. It's a little bit difficult. So,
right.
So about, I was also reading that I've been reading different articles. Some articles are saying that you guys have not received your aid, and then some articles are saying that it was received. So there supposedly was $50 million from the CARES Act, and then there was another $700,000 in aid. But has that actually been received?
What's interesting is the CARES Act has a lot of rules around it. Okay. So the Navajo Nation actually, the reason it kind of stalled, we did receive it to the Navajo Nation, but it stalled because they were trying to get an exception to those rules, which meant you had to spend it solely on COVID-related issues before December 31st.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it came with a lot of strings attached. Right.
They are COVID-related issues, but not technically.
Yeah, they're not. Right. They're not technically. And the timeline, it's going to take years to institute any of those programs. So I'm not sure where it stands right now. But the scope of the problem, it's a drop in the bucket, especially when you look at it from our viewpoint where, we've had energy companies make trillions of dollars off of our land, our resources. It's a drop in the bucket.
They should
So,
provide electricity to the reservations if they're
right. So right now I'm interim chair for Native Women Entrepreneurs of Arizona, and we put together a little video because we don't have any data either. And that's again to the government's advantage. If we don't have data, we're not a problem because the problem can't be proven through
Right.
data. So we've been collecting our own data. We visited a business owner who does a couple million a year. She's a pretty successful. Well, it's a family-run business. It's a tour business right outside of Page. And when we went to interview them, they were in modular trailers with no running water, no bathroom facilities, no electricity. And directly across the freeway from them, maybe a few hundred yards, was the Navajo generating station, generating power for Phoenix, LA, Page.
That is ridiculous.
Right. So these are some of the issues that we're trying to advocate for, and that's why I appreciate so much your invitation to come speak, because this information isn't readily available. We're often an afterthought.
No, if you read the People magazine article that literally came out today, it says in black and white that you received $50 million from the CARES Act. You got another $714 million in aid, and then you had another $300 million that they're asking for to come through in this next round.
Right. So I work. I've talked to the organization that's received about $7 million in a GoFundMe. They're spending roughly $500,000 a month for groceries. So the Navajo Nation has 13 grocery stores for the size of West Virginia.
Holy crap!
So, and then our entire economy has been shut down for almost 4 months.
Right.
So that was the only way, because we were losing people at such a high rate. The only way, we've been in lockdown, not just members of the community, but businesses. And we've had a curfew implemented for the last 90 days. So when you have an economy that's based on selling food on the side of the road or jewelry, arts and crafts, that it's not enough. And they do us a disservice because those numbers look large, right? But when you speak to people, they think your community is like a neighborhood.
No.
We span 3 states.
Wow.
So and then one of the problems is we can't retain any of that revenue. It's not going back into the local community. It's going to border towns because we don't have anywhere to put it. We don't have the capacity to spend that money. And on the reservation, we have, they're purchasing from Shamrock and Cisco and these big corporations that can provide that amount of food.
Right.
They are doing their best in purchasing, like I know they've worked with a few farms purchasing all the vegetables that they can, but it's not at a scale that can feed that population. So there's a lot of systemic issues that aren't being discussed.
Right. So what about the USDA produce box program? Are they able to access any of that? I know that here, the company that I get my produce boxes for my nonprofit, they took about 900 up to a reservation in Western Kansas. I can't remember where it was, but is that available? I mean, I think that's probably something that we just came up with here on our own and decided to take it out there.
Right. And that's what's working the best, because again, it's access to these communities, like dirt roads for miles and miles. So having the ability, the best thing that we can do is we have what are called chapter houses, which are kind of like the community centers. they've been doing food drives and food distribution there. But again, it's, you're serving a population of almost 200,000 people. So we have 110 chapters. And then, when you're trying to shelter at home and you have to drive out to get these food boxes so you can avoid the grocery stores, it's a logistical nightmare.
Right.
So yeah, there are many programs. World Central Kitchen is there right now, and they're feeding a community, but not all communities. So what we try to do is address the communities that may be falling through the cracks or getting left behind, and there's quite a lot of them.
Because that was in your mission, right? You said in your mission you would like to connect the reservations across the United States. I think that's what I read.
Absolutely.
It's like that everybody's it's from what you're telling me, it sounds like the individual reservations are operating within their silo and not as a unit, which if you would operate as a unit, you would probably,
there's strength in numbers.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is culture plays into everything, and that includes business. So if you come from a culture where you have your first instinct is to build a circular business model, and what I mean by that is you always think about you regenerative concepts in your business model, which means maybe your profit margin, the health and well-being of your employees are as important as your profit margin. Or, where you're sourcing from. Are you sourcing locally? Is this sustainable? We don't have recycling facilities. We don't even have operating landfills right now. So are we using compostable products? Stuff like that. Versus the rest of the nation, where they're very extractive models and they are just, profit at all costs. And that's what's taught in business school, and that's what is practiced in the major economy. So it's hard for us to compete, right? And there's nobody teaching these subjects. When I got my degree, that's all I heard. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, okay. So we're kind of at a disadvantage the way the economy is set up right now. But we're seeing right now that it needs to change, right? Because we're watching it crumble all around us. We don't have any social safety nets in place. The restaurant industry, which makes up about 50, not just restaurants, but the industry, which means trucking and food producers, farmers, apron linen companies. All of these things tied together make up about 50% of the economy. Yet no one's advocating for us. So we haven't even seen the fallout from these last few months. We don't know. This is unprecedented territory. So times that by 10, and that's the indigenous communities. So that's what we're fighting against.
Now, Bro, I want to ask another question, because I read this too, that the indigenous community did not get the stimulus check as individuals, or they did?
A lot of them did not, because it's a gray economy. A lot of entrepreneurs in indigenous communities, they're living day to day. They're selling crafts, they're selling pottery, they're selling food. So maybe they're not filing for taxes. Maybe they don't feel like they need to.
Right.
We have a very unique relationship with the federal government. So no, they didn't qualify. And then the PPP loans, a lot of the entrepreneurs are sole proprietors and they don't have employees. So they didn't qualify. And the ones that did, that don't have a physical address, they have a PO box, didn't qualify either. So a lot of these programs that were presented, we were completely left out of. I know that Native Women Entrepreneurs has an event coming up, and we're using a raffle to fund a small business relief fund for people that don't qualify for any of these programs, yet are business owners, because they, maybe they follow 1099, but they're out there doing business. So again, we're just trying to, find the people that are falling through the cracks because there's so many of them.
It feels like you guys are holding up sand at this point, and it's just
yeah,
all falling through the cracks. And there just doesn't seem like there's a lot of communication with regard to what's the next move, what's the next step, especially when in the mainstream media you keep hearing that, oh, they got all these funds, oh, they got all this relief,
exactly,
oh, there was aid. And then you talk to people who actually live on reservations and they're like, what aid? We still don't have water.
Yeah.
And imagine in 2020 there are people living in the United States of America without running water and electricity while their land provides electricity for a whole entire city is mind-boggling to me. Like I don't understand.
The first people. The first people.
Right.
And a lot of that is,
may I ask, how is that legal? That doesn't even sound like it's legal.
So you have to look at this. Every community is set up differently. There are communities that are doing really well because maybe they didn't have the natural resources that Navajo does. When I say natural resources, we're sitting on about 35% of the nation's coal.
Wow.
So a lot of the tribes that don't have something to offer, something to gain for the federal government. I mean, when we talk about those issues, as early as 2 years ago, I was at a call to action because Peabody Coal Mine, which was the coal company there, they were harassing an elderly gentleman because he wouldn't move off of his land. Navajo is set up under usufructuary rights, which means basically use it or lose it. And it's tied to grazing permits. So you have to have sheep to have land. So they were literally kidnapping his sheep.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And we were called to action to herd his sheep because he wasn't able to do it. And if he can't herd his sheep and have that legal occupancy, then he loses his land.
Wow.
So they were exploiting that. I mean, they do what corporations do, right? They exploit the structure and the laws that are written basically for them since they've been declared people.
Right.
So that's what we're fighting against.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to ask you about the significance of the ruling in Oklahoma. Some people, like I posted about it and people were like, someone had the caucasity to say, what about the people who are living there? I said, I don't know. Ask the motherfuckers who was living there first.
Right.
So we talk about this a lot. My reasoning for starting IndigiHub and for doing this advocacy work is to strengthen our communities because I really believe, okay, first, we're the only ethnic group that has a pedigree, right? We have blood quantum. We have to prove that we're native. Even though I'm full-blooded, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Dene, I can only claim half. So eventually we're bred out. And once we're bred out, there's no more claim. So that was always been intention of the federal government. Now, we know, especially with this administration, we'd always had a sense that they were going to try to relinquish the sovereign land titles for Native nations. We understood that. We've been fighting for it. The Wampanoag Nation was the first to lose their reservation status. They're the ones that had, Thanksgiving and first contact with pilgrims, etc., the colonies. But they fought and they got it back. The Creek Nation got theirs back. We have treaties in place that are not enforced. So these treaties were set in place at the creation of the United States. They've just never been honored. So now that they're being honored, that statement that you read from that gentleman or whoever said it, that comes from a colonial mindset where they think, oh, they're going to kick us off, or they're going to, you know what I mean? That's not what it's about. It's the freedom to operate under our traditional laws, our traditional culture. That's all it is. We're not gonna evict everybody, even though that's a meme sometimes. That's a colonial mindset. We've never had that mindset. That's, the first settlers were welcome, and we taught them to farm, etc. The whole nine yards. But that's not our culture. That's not our philosophy. So really, what it does is just it gives us an opportunity to develop our lands the way we want to practice our cultures and religions, and gives us a little more autonomy.
Right. And that's so when you talked about breeding out, that's something that I'm kind of dealing with in my family. So my mom's father and his sister were part Native American. However, their number
Right.
went with them. I don't, it's hard for me to go back and get that information and find that, because that's my grandfather. And then on my dad's side, his great 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 grandfather, when I look him up on like the ancestry thing, I can see him on a reservation in a census in Oklahoma, but that's all we know. We don't know.
Right.
Was he a slave on a reservation?
Right.
Was he what we don't that they don't tell you any of that information. It's very, very
Right.
difficult to trace that part of your heritage. I don't know.
Right. And that's by design.
It's frustrating.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Because you're like, as an African American person, there's that whole myth thing where everyone's like, oh, I'm part Cherokee. And I'm like, no, but it's not Cherokee. I'm not making this up. Literally. But I know that my dad's great grandfather he was an Indian. He worked on a reservation in Oklahoma. And what his job was to go to the West, to California. He was like a transporter, and he would pick up prisoners and transport them back across the territory back to the more, I guess, civilized part of the land. And I'm like, so I'm not making this up. I just can't find any information about them.
Right. Right. No, they literally, that's their hope, is someday we won't exist anymore. That's been their intention since they got here. I mean, we're not even in the education system. My own children wouldn't be able to learn about their culture in school, so we pulled them out and put them in a Montessori that is doing very well, educating about the first peoples and the true creation of the United States, how it came about.
And that's the point of this podcast, is that we learned, I think that with COVID and everything that happened, it was like, listen, I don't like the stories that are being told. And the only way that we are going to change the narrative is that if we take control of the telling of the story. And now we have this platform that's virtually free, that lives in perpetuity on the internet now. People are able to look this information up and find it, and I try to provide as many links as I possibly can, so that if somebody is up late and they're going down a rabbit hole, then they can find this information out for themselves. Is there anything that you feel like that we haven't covered with issue to what is going on our First Peoples land, on the Native land? And really, what's the correct way to say to refer?
Again, it varies. I prefer Indigenous because it includes our brothers and sisters from South America all the way up through the tip of North America.
Okay.
But it depends. It depends on who you talk to.
Right, because I don't like to be called POC. I hate that acronym.
Because you're like,
I'm like, I don't know who came up with that. Don't say that to me. I'm not a POC. I'm a lot, but not POC. And I want to, at some point in my life, be able to clearly articulate what it is. Because I feel like, by just the if you look at my family, there's a whole lot going on here on all the sides.
Right.
And I just want to know, like, what is it? There's a lot going on. Like on my mom's side, I'm on the darker end of the spectrum. On my dad's side, I'm on the medium to lighter end of the spectrum. So it's like we have a lot going on. And I feel like that as African American people, sometimes we don't acknowledge the close connection to our indigenous brothers and sisters. Yes, there were some nations who owned slaves through the same type of systems and institutional racism that everybody else dealt with too. I don't think that there were indigenous people who were like, oh, I know what we're going to do. Let's just go out that, you know, if we see how the colonialism is and the way that this government works, there had to be some type of.
And I was going to say a lot of those were Southern indigenous and that came from colonial influence.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say there was probably a lot of shucking and jiving, as my grandparents would say, that went along with that. There was a whole lot of weirdness that went there. But I do feel like that we have to acknowledge that, you know, as people, we're a lot more closely connected than they want us to believe that we are.
Yep. Because if we unite, right, we'll be formidable.
Right.
They win when we're fighting against each other.
Yeah, they like conflict. Conflict is big for them, you know?
Yep.
So if we would be, as I like to say, we would be beasts in this, you know, they fear us. And it's sad. You know, if we could all come together, as Shanita said, as a community, it would be nonstop, and nothing could stop this. That, you know, it would be such a strong bond that they couldn't. They would have to say, you know what? Hey, all right, I give in. You know, yes, you earned this right because it is our right in the first place. I want to lighten everything up just a little bit, only because we're three chefs right here on the screen. Please tell me a little bit about your food.
Yes.
Okay.
The picture too. I was like, ooh, should I
wait? I've been waiting to ask this question since Shanita told me that you were going to be on the show. And I hope that one day we're all able to be in the kitchen together. That would be amazing. But can you please give me a little bit more of your background when it comes to culinary and your food? What makes you happy? Your passion.
So, full disclosure, I am not the chef. I've been in food for about 20 years, but I'm more of a cook. And I say that not with any, you know, not any judgment of anybody else who would like to call themselves a chef, but my brother is our executive chef, and watching his journey, I wouldn't put that label on myself because he's been cooking since he was 8 years old. Wow. He did the old school stagiaires all over the country. He's staged in Alinea for Grant Ackett.
Wow.
He's
awesome.
done the whole 9 yards. So I love him having that title. I am going to cook at this concept, but I'm not going to take that yet. But that being said, my influence has always been the Southwest because that's where I grew up. And it's been it's been important to me since I was a kid, not seeing us in any capacity in the food scene. And the more I learned and more I educated myself and meeting these wonderful indigenous farmers and knowing that, you know, Native America has contributed about 2/3 of the world's agriculture. Mm-hmm. And we've, you know, influenced almost every cuisine in the world, but we never, you know, I literally, when I started my first restaurant, I did on street interviews and I asked people, what do you think when I say Native American cuisine? And the only answer I got consistently across the board were corn, beans, and fry bread. But that has a lot to do with us losing 90% of our biodiversity.
Right. And I think sometimes American people confuse Native American with Mexican. And so then
Yes.
you're like, okay,
Yeah, I'm like, think
go.
about your Thanksgiving table. What's on your Thanksgiving table? That'll give you a good start.
Like, not
So,
salsa tortillas. You're in the wrong space.
right, right. And then, growing up in the Southwest, we do have that influence, but um, our staples always in our menu, the blue corn and cactus pear and things that you find. Um, I know, like, I work closely with the farms down there in De Baquez, an Apache farm. They're doing amazing work, and they're revitalizing their ancestral foods and doing a lot of teaching about how farms looked way back then, which is it's kind of an important concept because that's where we got the term hunter gatherer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hunter gatherer meant that they came to the continent and it was bountiful because nature provided, which isn't true. Um, Agricultural scientists is what I like to call them. They engineered corn from a tiny little plant to this huge ear that can produce so much food and feeds most of the world population now. So when we reframe that thinking, that's why I started restaurants. That's why I got interested in food, because that no one was talking about that when I started 20 years ago, and they're barely talking about it now.
Right.
And I think it's an important piece of the conversation.
And it's
Everything
funny
that's happening right now.
you talked about blue corn because in my restaurant I serve the Sea Island blue grits, which I get from South
Oh,
Carolina.
nice.
And
Yeah.
people are like, "You dye these?" I was like,
Uh-huh.
"You can't have blue tortilla chips and not get blue grits, people. It's the same thing."
That's amazing. We actually put a blue fire shrimp was a take on shrimp and grits, and we had that on the menu. It was one of the most popular ones we had.
Those Sea Island blue grits are the bomb.com.
Yeah, awesome. Because the blue corn has a more earthy flavor than just yellow or white corn.
Yes.
And it really complements that seafood. So,
And that's
but yeah, that's
that in going back to just cultural appropriation, the thing that bugs me is when they call it all heritage grains and they don't really
right. Oh
like,
my gosh.
how did you guys know how to get the Jimmy Red corn and the Island blue grits and the Carolina gold rice? It's not heritage, it's indigenous.
Right.
You learned it from the first people. Stop it.
So I think that's what got me interested in restaurants, is that erasure of our culture and our contribution to the world just bugged the heck out of me. And this was a platform where I could educate people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny though, because when I started, I thought, okay, I'm just going to open this little restaurant and it's going to be like fast casual and it's going to be fun. And then I realized very quickly I couldn't, it wasn't hitting. The recipes weren't hitting where I wanted them to. So I asked my brother to help me. It took me 2 years to convince him, but when he did, our concept just changed. Okay, I guess now we're casual fine dining, and I guess we're all full service, and everybody's in black, and I guess we're winning awards now. It scaled so quickly, we never caught up. I finally sold it. I think it was after 7 years. And at that point, we still hadn't caught up. We just hit the ground running. But
see, I think that's a beautiful thing that while you guys, you and your brother and other indigenous chefs are kind of tackling and elevating your cuisine, it's not quite, it hasn't reached that mainstream space where it's being diluted and appropriated. And so you're at a space now where it can be pure and really represent like the heart of the people who created the cuisine, unlike what we deal with in the South, where it's like,
yeah, yep, totally. I think
you should like really cherish that moment, because I mean, all of us, we're like in awe. You know what I mean? So like we really appreciate it. Like you're appreciated. It's not often that you can be in the culinary industry and be appreciated for your culture, for your food, for your passion, for all your hard work in this industry. And right now, it's like the sun is like shining on you, regardless of all these other, cons that are going on behind the scenes. The sun is still shining. So run with it, sweetheart.
Thank you.
As far as you
And
can.
I do appreciate it. I've also been very careful about how I present it because of that, because of the novelty of indigenous chefs and cuisine. We get approached with the stupidest request.
Mhm.
And I remember a chef yelling at me because I turned down Travel Channel. And he's like, why would you? I was like, they wanted us to be on some like bizarre foods or something, and that's not who we are.
Yeah.
Because that,
So,
and I hate the thing about that show that bugs me is that it reduces cultures to like the oddities of the culture.
yeah,
Like when you go to like Vietnam and India and places, not everybody's eating bugs. Stop showing that
yeah,
shit on TV for the wow of it all. Like that, you're talking about a small percentage of people who do that. Let's really, I
right.
would like for them to stop with that crap. If
Me
that's one
too.
thing
That
that we see
exploitation.
in 2020, that
Exactly.
would be it. Like, can we really just start appreciating other cultures and other food for the beauty of what it really is, and
Yep.
stop the foolishness? Like, I'm over it.
Me
Well,
too. And
congratulations to you for saying no to that, because that's ridiculous.
yeah, he got over it.
Well, and you wouldn't have felt good about yourself had you have been on TV
No,
eating something like goat's heart. Do you even eat that? No. We're just doing it
no,
so that we can be on television. And
right. And that's
no,
our responsibility, right? So to accurately represent what we love most. I think that's really important.
and
And
I think
being on
that goes to
TV
your
isn't the
overall mission of protecting your elders. You can't protect your elders if you dilute and bastardize their culture. They've been through enough, and they don't.
absolutely. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, they definitely.
absolutely.
So before we go, I always ask this question because my therapist asked me, and originally I was getting ideas so that I could answer it for myself, but I've done that now. So this 2020 has definitely been a reset and a pivot for a lot of us in this food and beverage industry specifically. So I want to know, how are you resetting, and what's one thing that you're leaving pre-COVID that you don't plan on taking into your work, your life, your whatever after this reset?
We are taught that when you're in times of struggle and strife, in order to keep your mental health, you're taught to give. So if a family member passes, especially for my northern culture, um, we do like it's kind of like a wake. You feed everybody, you feed the community, and then everybody in the community offers blankets, headdresses, saddles to one of the bereft, and it's like the ceremony is so beautiful, but really it does that. So I've taken that philosophy during this time of COVID where I could slide into that depression, that feeling of helplessness because I can't operate my businesses, or I can help people and safeguard my mental health. So that's what I've been doing. That's what motivates me. Coming out of this, I think I will check my ego a lot more. I've had to work with some difficult people during this process, and especially in the organization, and constantly remind myself that the mission is bigger than any of our egos,
Mhm.
and be aware and cognizant of that, and be okay with that, and be okay with letting go a little bit of my control issues and trusting. So, uh, yeah, that's what I'm going to take moving forward.
That's beautiful. And don't worry about your control issues. We both have them too.
Well, we are, well, I mean, we are in the industry to, we have that kind of background in us. So we have to have a little bit of that control issue. So it's okay. But you just had a quote, and I'm probably just now going to flip it around, but you said,
It's okay.
your mission is bigger than your ego. Um, that just hit home. And I think people really need to hear that more and more every day throughout 2020. I think 2020 is telling people that. It's slapping
I
them
think
right.
so too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's
A
just
lot
great.
of that stuff we thought was important wasn't so important. We need to
Exactly.
focus on what's important, and that's community.
A lot of who we thought were important weren't important.
Exactly. Yeah. It's getting your priorities straight. 2020 is bringing that to the forefront on so many issues and so many things. And for me, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. I know that you'll be able to work with Shanita hand in hand, especially through the James Beard boot camp. I hope you guys enjoy that experience. I did it. Oh my God. 2015. I did boot camp back then. And it was an amazing experience. So I hope that you guys cherish this experience and also cherish all the friendships that you make. Because
intense, but
but you never know, because you'll look back and be like, hey, I need to call this person because I need them. And I just want to offer a hand from me and Shanita and the rest of our small little group that we have, which is not quite small. It's kind of big. If you ever need anything, please just reach
Thank
out.
you so much. Thank
and
you
I'm
so much
hoping
to
that
both of you.
this COVID calms down because my daughter is itching for a road trip, so we can jump in the car and head on out.
That would be amazing.
As a kid, my dad drove us to. My dad passed away in 2018, but he liked to drive, so we went to California. And we drove from Kansas City, from Kansas to Palo Alto and then to Los Angeles. That's where my grandfather lived in Palo Alto. My grandmother lived in Los Angeles. We stopped at every reservation, every stop, every side boutique, every pottery place, and so all the way there. Because he was like, "Get out the car and run. Go see what they have." That was like his way to make us go to bed. He wanted us to get
awesome.
up. To make that drive again. It's a beautiful. Once you get past Colorado, it's amazing.
That would be amazing, and you're welcome at my home anytime.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for watching. We will drop all of Blue's information for the protecting of the elders and all of the other initiatives that she has going on in the comments. And we hope that you guys will join us back here again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central for the conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.